mic starts, I just want to talk to you about something really, actually kind of serious, but, you know, keep it light. When it comes to weapons training, there are certainly a handful of weapons that I really believe are staples that you need to learn how to use and use well, firearms being the chief of that list. And when I say weapons, I mean physically tools outside of your body. Yes, I understand that your hands, your feet, your body, your mind are all weapons. It's always the classic cliche philosophical answer, your mind is the greatest weapon. Well, yes, but that's not what I'm talking about. When anybody asks you what your favorite weapon is, they're not asking your mind. They're not asking your fist. They're saying, what implements do you like to use? What implements do you think are particularly useful? What implements do you think are going to serve you well in a broad series of circumstances and whatnot? And, thanks, Luna. And I will tell you that I do believe firearms rank number one. I also believe that blades of various sizes and sticks of various sizes are next, because generally you can find something sharp and slashy or something blunt and stick-like. You can usually find something of nature on either of those things, and learning how to use them well is excellent. In fact, I would say that you know, it's always dependent on the teacher, but you find a good Filipino martial arts teacher, you're going to be on the right track to using those things well, because stick and knife is pretty much what they do. There are, of course, many schools of thought, and I would not limit myself to only their versions of stick and knife. I like to play with a large variety of things. But, you know, training in rapier is not going to be quite as everyday useful under assault, of course, as, say, you know, machete training. 9-foot pole training, like we do in Wing Chun, is great physical exercise and does have its place. You know, we sell, you know, in the big, you know, lumber stores and stuff, they sell a lot of things in 8 and 12-foot sections. So if you're used to using a longer stick, you don't have to worry about how am I going to do butterfly spins and stuff with this gigantic pole. Well, you've learned how to use a long pole, so it could be useful. But it's still not as useful as, say, something about 4 feet tall, like a broom handle, which is very, very readily accessible, always. So just consider things like that. Those are what I consider the linchpin ideas, and granted, it is a very large variety. When you just say stick and knife, well, what size stick, what size knife? Tell you what, I like this. It is the Cold Steel Recon 1. It is a fantastic blade. It's about a 6-inch blade. Fits nicely in my pocket, it's easy to deploy. This one does not have the pocket clip that retracts the blade, or protracts the blade rather, when you pull it out of your pocket like the AK-47 does. There are several models of knife that do that. The flip on this one is very easy though, so it's not something I have to worry about particularly much. You know, fixed blade is of course always going to be stronger than a pocket knife, but as far as lockbacks, Cold Steel does some really, really excellent work. And I can do a lot of work with that one knife. And these are things I want you to consider. Learning about weapons is not really about learning that specific weapon. It's about learning the capabilities and limitations of implements and what you can do with them. That's why it's important to train a broad variety, because then you start to understand it's not just range. It's targeting, it's strength of the implement, it's, I mean, durability of the implement. There's people will say, well, give me a paper clip and I can defend myself. Well, sure you can, but it's not a particularly durable implement. A pen works, but it's not particularly durable. You may find you get 1 or 2 pokes off with a weapon like that, and then the guy keeps coming. And then what do? You don't have a weapon. Pick up something else. A chair, a rock, a guitar, whatever. And that's where I really want to go with this. Improvisation. Start looking around everywhere you go. Look for things that are readily mobile. Not just things that you can muscle out of the way, but things that are readily mobile, things that you can heft up with little difficulty. And I mean, anything from something heavy enough to shot put at somebody to something light enough to, to go all crazy kung fu on somebody with. But start observing your environment, because you're not always going to be able to have your knives, your gun, how often do you walk around with an AR-15 or a 12 gauge? Some of you might, depending on where you live, but in all reality, how often do you walk around with those things on you all the time? And they say, Murphy's Law, anything that can and will go wrong, or anything that can go wrong will go wrong, something like that. So that you're going to get into trouble when you don't have the tools you need. So you need to learn how to identify improvised weapons, improvisable tools, and do what you can with them. Claw hammers are fantastic. Talk to you later. Good journey.